Mercury should be easy to understand. It's the closest planet to the Sun. A tiny, burned rock, dead, silent, empty. At least, that's what humanity believed for thousands of years. But Mercury is hiding a terrifying secret, because the closer scientists looked, the less this planet made sense. Mercury is supposed to be the hottest planet. It isn't. It's supposed to be geologically dead. It isn't. It's supposed to have lost its atmosphere billions of years ago, but somehow it still has one. And strangest of all, this tiny world may be the surviving core of a planet that was violently ripped apart in the early solar system. Mercury may not be a planet. It may be a cosmic crime scene. Mercury lives dangerously close to the Sun. On average, only about 58 million kilometers away. That sounds close, but space is so enormous that even sunlight still needs more than 3 minutes to reach Mercury. Yet despite being so close to the Sun, Mercury behaves unlike any other planet. First, it moves insanely fast. Mercury races around the Sun at nearly 47 kilometers per second. That's faster than any planet in the solar system. A single year on Mercury lasts only 88 Earth days. Even though its year is incredibly short, its day is unbelievably long. A single sunrise to sunrise cycle on Mercury lasts 176 Earth days. A day on Mercury is longer than its entire year. Imagine celebrating New Year's Day twice before the sun even finishes crossing the sky. But the deeper mystery is why. Scientists discovered that Mercury is trapped in something called a 3-to-2 spin-orbit resonance. For every 2 orbits around the Sun, Mercury rotates exactly 3 times. Why would a planet end up in such a bizarre rhythm? The answer is violence. Over billions of years, the Sun's gravity tortured Mercury into this strange, locked pattern. And that creates one of the weirdest sunrises in the solar system. On some parts of Mercury, the Sun rises, stops, reverses direction, then rises again. Imagine standing on the surface and watching the Sun literally change its mind. But that's only the beginning, because Mercury's relationship with the Sun gets far more brutal. Most people think Venus is hotter than Mercury because Venus is closer to the Sun. But Venus is not closer. Mercury is. So why isn't Mercury the hottest planet? Because Mercury has almost no atmosphere, and that changes everything. During the day, Mercury's surface can reach around 430 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. But once the sun disappears, the heat escapes directly into space. Nighttime temperatures crash to around negative 180 degrees Celsius. That is a temperature swing of over 600 degrees. No other planet experiences such extreme changes. One side is an oven, the other is a freezer. But then Mercury breaks reality again. Because despite being roasted by the sun, scientists discovered water ice on Mercury, actual frozen ice, on the closest planet to the sun. Radar observations revealed something shocking inside Mercury's polar craters. Some craters are so deep that sunlight never reaches their floors. Not for a day, not for a year, possibly not for billions of years. Inside these eternal shadows, temperatures remain cold enough for ice to survive. Mercury contains some of the hottest and coldest places in the solar system at the same time. And suddenly, Mercury stops feeling like a simple rock. It starts feeling unstable, contradictory, almost broken. But the biggest contradiction was still waiting, because Mercury shouldn't even exist in its current form. When NASA's spacecraft finally got close enough to study Mercury properly, scientists discovered something disturbing. Mercury is enormous on the inside, not in size, in metal. Roughly 85% of the planet's radius is occupied by a gigantic iron core. That is absurd. Earth has a large metallic core too, but Mercury's core is proportionately gigantic. It's like Mercury is all core, with barely any planet wrapped around it. Did Mercury somehow form this way? Or did something strip the planet apart? Scientists think early Mercury may have once been much larger. Then sometime during the chaotic birth of the solar system, a massive protoplanet may have slammed into it. The collision could have blasted away most of Mercury's outer layers, leaving behind the dense metallic core. In other words, Mercury may be the exposed remains of a murdered planet. And the evidence doesn't stop there. Mercury is still shrinking. As its giant iron core slowly cools over billions of years, the planet contracts. NASA discovered enormous cliffs stretching hundreds of kilometers across the surface. These cliffs formed because the entire planet literally wrinkled as it shrank. Mercury is collapsing inward, even today. But then Mercury revealed another impossible secret. Because somehow, this tiny world still has a magnetic field. And that should not happen. Magnetic fields usually come from molten metallic interiors. Earth's has one because its liquid outer core is constantly moving. But Mercury is tiny. Tiny planets cool quickly. By all logic, Mercury's core should have frozen solid billions of years ago. Its magnetic field should be dead. But it isn't. Mercury still possesses a global magnetic field. Weak compared to Earth's, but real. Which means deep beneath Mercury's burned surface, part of its massive iron core is somehow still molten. Some scientists think sulfur inside the core keeps part of it molten. But whatever the explanation is, Mercury refuses to fully die. And that magnetic field creates another bizarre phenomenon. The sun constantly fires streams of charged particles outward at incredible speed. This solar wind slams directly into Mercury. Earth's atmosphere and strong magnetic field protect us. Mercury barely has either. And the result is chaos. The solar wind actually blasts atoms off Mercury's surface: sodium, potassium, oxygen. These particles drift around the planet, creating an ultra-thin atmosphere called an exosphere. Mercury is slowly being sandblasted by the sun, atom by atom. And yet, somehow, it survives. But then came the moment Mercury became truly terrifying. Because one spacecraft revealed scars so gigantic they changed Mercury's entire history. In the 1970s, NASA's Mariner 10 became the first spacecraft to visit Mercury. And decades later, the Messenger mission transformed our understanding completely. What they found was horrifying. Mercury's surface is covered in ancient impact scars. This planet was bombarded mercilessly during the violent youth of the solar system. But one impact stood above all others: the Caloris Basin, a gigantic impact structure roughly 1,550 kilometers wide, one of the largest impact structures in the entire solar system. The asteroid that created it hit with so much energy that the shock waves traveled through the entire planet. On the exact opposite side of Mercury, the surface shattered and buckled into chaotic terrain. Imagine an impact so powerful it rearranges an entire world. Mercury's surface wasn't just ancient. Some regions appeared surprisingly young. There were signs of volcanic activity. If Mercury was supposed to be dead for billions of years, why did parts of it remain active for so long? The deeper scientists investigated Mercury, the less stable the story became. This wasn't a simple dead rock orbiting the sun. This was a survivor, a planet repeatedly smashed, heated, compressed, stripped apart, and irradiated that somehow kept going. But Mercury still had one final secret, a secret hidden in Einstein's equations. For centuries, astronomers tracked Mercury's orbit with incredible precision. And something was wrong. Its orbit didn't behave exactly the way Newton's laws predicted. Not by much, just a tiny deviation, but enough to create a crisis. Maybe there was another planet near the sun. They even gave it a name, Vulcan. But Vulcan didn't exist. The equations still failed. Then in 1915, a young physicist named Albert Einstein introduced general relativity. And suddenly, Mercury made sense. Einstein realized Mercury sits so close to the sun that space-time itself becomes warped by the sun's immense gravity. Mercury wasn't disobeying physics. It was revealing that Newton's understanding of gravity was incomplete. This tiny, tortured planet helped rewrite humanity's understanding of the universe. Think about that. The smallest planet in the solar system helped unlock one of the greatest scientific revolutions in human history. Mercury should have been destroyed long ago. Instead, it endured. And maybe that's what makes this tiny planet so fascinating. Not because it's perfect, but because it survived chaos without ever becoming stable. Maybe the universe was never meant to become peaceful. Maybe beauty is simply what happens after survival.